legal expert at TexasDefenseFirm.com. He joins us now. The Trump sentencing, he was sentenced earlier today to unconditional discharge in his hush money case. What does that mean?
First off, in New York State, the judge can basically hit you on the head with a frying pan and say, "Get out of my life. You're a felon," and that's it. That's an unconditional discharge. We don't have that in Texas. A criminal case is what is called bifurcated. It's in two sections. There's the guilt innocence phase, and then there's the sentencing phase. In fact, in Texas, we are the only state in the union that allows a jury to sentence you on the second half. New York State doesn't have that. It's all judge punishment. So in this instant, Donald Trump was found guilty. What was it? May, June, somewhere in there. And there's been a lot that's happened, obviously, since then. You had the Supreme Court immunity ruling that came along. Trump tried to persuade the judge to throw it out based on that. We had the election. Judge didn't want to mess with this around the election. So that's why we sort of are where we are. But the judge basically said, "Get out of my life. You're a felon. You're labeled as a felon, but I'm not going to make you pay a fine. I'm not going to make you do probation. I'm not going to put you in jail." And to give you just sort of an idea, let's just take a run-of-the-mill DWI that we might have in Texas. The sentence range is between 72 hours of jail and 180 days, and a fine, I think it's up to $2,000. The judge has to sentence you to a dollar fine, and the judge has to sentence you to 72 hours of jail. Now, he can probate that, or she can probate that. So the judge can't just say, "Get out of my life, go away." You have zero fine, you have zero jail. In New York State, obviously, that's not the case. That's what that unconditional discharge is.
Joining us on 710 KURV is Jeremy Rosenthal, a legal expert. Davey, I think you had a question. You were waving at me a second ago. Go ahead.
I forget now what the president was convicted of, and I listened to the whole thing this morning, and it just I'm no fan. I mean, obviously the president was paying off this woman to keep her mouth shut. I didn't think that rose to a felony in any jurisdiction in the country, but this is something that helped swing the election to Mr. Trump. I guess I'm making a statement and not making a comment.
Let me rephrase some of this actually for you. So Trump is just getting basically a scarlet letter. He's not being forced to do community service. He's getting the mark of a felon, and that's it.
He's the felon who is president. That's why they did it.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to pay anybody. He doesn't have to do anything. How often is that kind of sentence passed down?
It's not, well, look, my understanding is that this unconditional discharge is pretty rare even in New York. Now, let's kind of talk about the scales of justice, if you will, because I do think that, believe it or not, I think fundamentally we can go to law school, we can study until our eyes bleed, we can talk about whether the tax code has a soul and write 8 million page articles on it, right? Are you sure? I don't. Okay, look, I went to SMU for law school. We spent a long time on this stuff, but it comes back to the scales of justice, right? So going back, let's go back to the DWI, okay? Whether my client is innocent, whether my client's guilty, and I've prosecuted a ton of DWIs, I've defended a ton of DWIs, whether my client is innocent or whether my client is guilty, they get it when they're in jail. They are taken. They are put in the back of the squad car. It is humiliating. The mom, dad, aunt, uncle, sister, wife don't know where you are for 7 hours. They think you could be dead. It is the hand grenade that goes off in your living room. It sucks. It's expensive. You pay your lawyer, hopefully a lot, on time. You go to court. It's stressful. You don't know what's going to happen. Does it really matter if the state of Texas labels you forever? I don't know. And if you're not guilty, of course, or if you're innocent, of course. But the point that I'm trying to make is, what's justice here, right? When you talk about the scales of justice and you relate it just to a simple DWI, right? I think a lot of people would say, you know what? You've been through it all. You learned your lesson. We're even here. Okay. And that's kind of what happened to Donald Trump. when he was talking today on the, he was given a chance to allocute to speak to the judge before sentencing. He's at one point he said this has been a terrible experience or something to that effect. This wasn't fun for Donald Trump. So there's a saying in the law, or a saying in the legal community: you may beat the rat, but you're not going to beat the ride. So Donald Trump, so really, I mean, in the scales of justice, did this thing really even out? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, and to your point before, this is a very low grade felony. It's still a felony. Not fun. I don't want one on my record. I don't think anybody wants one of these on their record. But ultimately, people are convicted of these things. Michael Cohen was convicted of this and got, I think, 2 or 3 years of house arrest. So, I mean, these things happen. It's not free. So anyhow, that's what I come back to, right? Does it pass the scales test? And this one's, it's not, it's kind of close, right? I mean, he did something wrong, and he got caught doing something wrong, and he went through I'll bet you if he had to do it again, he wouldn't, right? So maybe we're fine here, right?
Somebody, yeah, it's kind of,
and
we're just going to go our separate ways after this. You're never going to hear from either of us again. And it's interesting too, because the judge, if there was bias from the judge politically, the judge still gets to hand him the felony mark, right? The scarlet letter.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, well, you know this guy's untouchable. The entire country just elected him president, right? So there's not, if in just a few days, you're going to have the entire power of the U.S. government that would be looking into a way to save the president from any other type of sentence anyway,
They
right?
shouldn't do that.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like we're kind of at a stalemate here, so they'll take what they can get.
I heard one national commentator say that the judge didn't do this to help the Democratic nominee or to help Biden. He did it because he was catching grief from fellow progressives who didn't think he was laying into Mr. Trump hard enough. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
This is his pound of flesh. Today, he issued an opinion about a week ago that really dug into Donald Trump, and talked about, look. So New York State also has another a thing that we don't have in Texas. In New York State, it's called a Clayton motion. That's probably a New York case that they name it after. A Clayton motion in New York State is: judge, in the best interest of justice, dismiss this case. In Texas, we don't give our judge that much power. The judge has to follow the law. If a jury returns a jury verdict that's guilty or not guilty, the judge is legally bound to accept that. He doesn't have what we call discretion to do otherwise. In New York State, the defense can say, in the best interest of justice, make this go away. The defense, Donald Trump, did that. And the justice weighed the factors, and he wrote it all out in his opinion. And part of it was pretty scathing. It said, dude, you went in the hallway and bashed not just me, but the legal system every day. You're not entitled to get out of this. I am letting you out of this because of the office of the presidency. Now, look, had Donald Trump shown some contrition, does Judge Merchan say, you know what, I am going to let you out of this? Who knows? But I think, and Judge Merchan, I mean, you can, I know he's got a lot of detractors out there, but he knows he can read the room. In his opinion, in that 18-page opinion that he issued, he said straight out, I'm not going to put you in jail. I'm going to let you appear via Zoom. I'm going to give you this unconditional discharge. And the Supreme Court yesterday, when they turned Donald Trump down for his appeal, echoed that language. Amy Coney Barrett, the Chief Justice Roberts, those were the swing votes that turned Trump down. And they cited Judge Merchan's language saying, you're not going to jail, and he's letting you appear via Zoom. This is not a big deal. You still have your right to appeal, and Donald Trump can and still will appeal this. And this thing may very well go poof. That can very much happen still too. It's going to be in 2 or 3 years. But so that's kind of how this went down. But yeah.
Hey, thanks a lot for spending some time with us. I'm going to be fascinated to see. Maybe we can have this conversation down the line, but it would be like Schrodinger's felony if he were able to pardon himself, wouldn't it be? If he'd be like, well, he did get convicted, but then he pardoned himself, so technically he's not. So interesting back and forth there. But thanks a lot, Jeremy. Appreciate it. That's